30 on Wednesday, and that means it's time to talk with me, Jen Graziano. I'm the co-owner of Cox and Graziano Funeral Home, located at 134 Hamilton Avenue, and as part of my family's commitment to the community, I come to you every Wednesday, talking to people that matter, about things that matter, in a place that matters, right here in Greenwich. Good morning to all of our listeners on 1490 WGCH and our Facebook Live viewers. And thanks to Bob and Tim who are here helping us this morning. And welcome to my guest, Dr. Karen Vivier. Did I say that correct?
No, I'm an LCSW.
Oh, LCSW,
clinical social worker.
So I got the name right. I got the title wrong.
Exactly.
Well, we promoted you to a doctor this morning. See, lots happen on the show. But you are discussing very important things with our listeners and viewers this morning. We are talking about awareness, mindfulness, mental health issues, and your perspective through your social work practice. You are in private practice right here in Coscop now, so we will let everyone know how to get in touch with you at the end of the show. And you have quite a background that has brought you to this point. Tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've had the opportunity to work with many diverse populations. I've worked here in Greenwich and in the Stamford community for most of my career. I've worked with young people with disabilities. I've worked with adults with disabilities. I've had the opportunity to work with chronically mentally ill here in Greenwich. Currently, I work with young people who have experienced a lot of trauma. So that's pretty much what I have done in the last 20 years of my career.
Karen, you seem to run the gamut. You've walked people through a lot of different issues and illnesses, and it seems that, there's a saying, everyone has something that they deal with. Everyone's got something to bear, or everyone has some type of cross. But all of these challenges that people face and struggle with internally manifest themselves somehow. So there really is a need to talk to somebody when you find yourself at an impasse, to seek out help, to really get to the bottom of what's going on mentally and internally.
Absolutely. I feel as though, this is a great platform, it being Mental Health Awareness Month, to discuss some of these issues, and whether you have a diagnosis, whether you've been in therapy or not, is really less of my concern at the moment. Just really, I think, thinking about how busy our lives are and how, as you said, that can manifest into some dysfunctional behavior, having us be very stressed out, that affecting our mental health and our physical health.
And we're more ready to call a doctor for a physical condition. If you don't feel well, you pick up the phone, or nowadays you walk into an urgent care, but you treat it and you deal with it. So there should be no reason why this is not addressed with the same urgency. But talk a little bit about Mental Health Awareness Month and how this came to be. Do you see more of a movement that removes the stigma of mental health? Do you see more of a climate where people are talking about issues that impact them?
Absolutely. I think the more we talk about it, the more we educate people, the less stigma will be connected to mental health issues, and perhaps opening people up to, as you said, getting themselves some help for whether it be minor issues or major issues. But there's still a lot of stigma, and there's a lot of work to be done. I do believe that, with every month, everyone bringing awareness to, say, autism, or again, mental health awareness, or whatever month that might bring. I think, educating the public about some of these issues will alleviate. That is one of the strategies that I do promote, is educating people and changing language, and being aware of what you're saying, being aware of your language and how you use it, does create a bit of a stigma.
It's interesting when you take how young people are taught. I know in my daughter's school, they have a social worker who comes in and works with the whole school through the Archdiocese, funds that. And they talk about putting a word to a feeling and connecting words and feelings. And also, as the kids get older, connecting words to consequences. Mm-hmm. That there has to be an awareness of and a mindfulness of what we're saying and how we're expressing ourselves, because it can have consequences for us and those around us. But I think it's important that giving people the tools as young as possible to assign words to feelings and assign words to consequences will only help as they age.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think the younger you start doing that, the better off young people are going to be. They're also very stressed. They see what their parents are doing in this very busy world. They're doing a lot of different activities, running around, being very busy, and not being very mindful of what they're doing and what they're saying. So I absolutely do think starting that early sets them on a path of being very knowledgeable and being very kind.
It's only good things can stem from that. So I want to talk a bit about, in some of your notes here, you say that life challenges can strain relationships and become barriers to personal fulfillment. What are some of these life challenges? And talk about this type of strain on relationships that you experience through your work.
I mean, life challenges are as simple as, caring for your children, caring for your aging adult parents, loss, grief. I mean, things that we all experience throughout our life. We will all experience grief. We all experience stress, heavy workloads, trying to find a balance between work, home life, raising children, raising responsible children. There's a lot, particularly on parents, trying to meet the needs of everyone, but as a result, forgetting about taking care of themselves.
And the only way to be an effective caregiver is to care for oneself. And it's a difficult dichotomy, because when you're pulled in so many different directions and you want to do what's best to care for everybody in your circle and everyone that you love, you do get lost along the way of that. But there can be some serious side effects from abundant stress and lack of sleep. I mean, what really could happen to that, let's take the everyday mom who's wearing 1,000 hats. What are some of the potential side effects when somebody keeps up that lifestyle and doesn't give themselves proper time, attention, or care?
Well, I mean, a lot of things. So physical health will be affected. As you said, sort of lack of sleep. Lack of sleep creates more stress on your body. Your body's going to react. You could have ulcers. You could have chronic headaches. You could have physical pain. It manifests itself physically in many different ways. In terms of mental health, you could be experiencing higher degrees of depression or anxiety.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there is a mind-body connection.
Absolutely.
For sure. So you also talk through your practice, you help your clients gain new insights from past experiences to reshape the process that prevents successful outcomes. So basically what you're saying is, if we don't resolve our past issues, they will manifest themselves, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but somewhere down the road, whether it's unresolved grief, unresolved issues with family members. Talk a bit about how the past experiences shape who we become.
Well, I guess in my write-up, what I had said was that our childhood is really the foundation of our character, of our personality. And when you have things that perhaps have been unresolved, like small traumas, big traumas, growing up with families who maybe you experienced alcoholism, just even communication styles in terms of some families. I work with a lot of families. There's a lot of things that people don't talk about. So some of those things do go unresolved, and you carry them into your adulthood, which begin to affect how you think, your beliefs about yourself. Feelings, thoughts and feelings and your behavior are all connected. So if you go through your life being very unaware of why you respond the way you do, how you behave, if you're not in touch with your feelings, or you have been taught to ignore how you feel because it didn't matter, those things will affect your relationships going forward. They'll reflect in your career, in your success, in how you handle just everyday problems.
And it's so funny because people who have these unresolved issues, again, they work themselves into work, relationships, or parts of everyday life. And most people don't make that connection or don't find the nexus between the unresolved past and the present conflict. So, I'm sure people are quick to dismiss that and say, oh, that happened so long ago, or, one has nothing to do with the other. But we are the sum of all our parts and the sum of all our experiences. So I guess you could say it's never too late to delve back into the past and kind of heal what happened.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's never too late. It's great to start children young, and certainly as we age, as you see sometimes when people begin to age, you see them experiencing more depression, more anxiety, and so that could be a direct result of unresolved issues. Certainly, as I said, the foundation of who we are begins in childhood, and if you didn't begin to have a good foundation as in the beginning, you're definitely not going to be aware of how that affects you as you get older. So some of the things that are actually happening in your brain as you become more depressed is you have very negative thoughts. If you're anxious, you have thoughts of very fearful thoughts. So that can, just like any muscle in our body, those neural networks in our brain can be strengthened, and all of a sudden that becomes very habitual. So imagine over time, if you've left that unresolved, by the time you're much older, those neural pathways are already made very strong connections. But the beautiful thing about the brain is that it's a muscle, and just like any other muscle in our body, it can be reshaped and form new neural pathways. And that starts with just simple mindfulness, being aware of what you're thinking as you're thinking it, being aware of what you're feeling as you're feeling it, and how that is a direct result of how you behave, because a lot of these things over time become very habitual. And then those things tend to, again, affect our relationships. They affect how we relate to other people.
And it seems so obvious as you're saying it, and everything you're saying makes so much sense. But a lot of people, it's easier just, kind of to build a bridge over it and keep going forward. So I think it takes a lot of courage to recognize there's an issue and to deal with it and to seek out help and to be willing to expose yourself and your feelings to go back in time and perhaps, heal and fix and relive many things. I want to talk about depression and anxiety. Do you feel that this is more common, or it's just that we're aware more or we speak about it more? Has this always kind of impacted our society, but we just swept it under the rug? Or do you find increased number of cases of depression and anxiety?
Well, I do believe that obviously, in the past when we were less willing and able to discuss these things, absolutely that was affected. But I do see the calls that I'm getting for my private practice are young girls, very young girls, 10, 12 years old, who are experiencing panic attacks, who are experiencing major anxiety. And that I do believe is a direct result of our society and how busy we are and how hectic we are and how we don't take time to just appreciate what we're doing. I mean, I don't know how it was when you were growing up, but I know I was out riding my bike and eating ice cream. I didn't worry about all of the stress and scary things, and that does impact on our children. It does impact on our mental health.
That is frightening.
It is.
And even girls in conflict with one another. I mean that's a tale as old as time. Everybody experienced that to some degree. But again, like you say, the panic attacks, the anxiety, the struggle that very young children, in this case girls, have to go to school as young as 10 years old. I mean, that's problematic, and not enough can be done or said, I think, to educate people and make them aware of what we can do to help our children.
Absolutely.
It's so important, because if it's not treated and if it's not helped, it's just going to become a very bad snowball domino effect. But what, as you work with clients and as you help people overcome this, do you find that the roots of depression and anxiety are always the same? Is it rooted in a worry of, we feel alone, or we feel unsupported or unloved? What are the common threads that unite these two conditions?
Well, that is always very personal, and I do, believe that it's very individualized. So you really
Okay.
kind of have to get to the root of what people's experiences are. But absolutely, just in a very simple way to explain it is just, our beliefs about ourselves are a direct result of our experiences. So as we grow up and things that we learn about ourselves, that impacts our core beliefs. Our core beliefs are a direct result of our thoughts. And then that impacts our feelings, which impacts our behavior. And whether it's depression or anxiety, that's the common thread of which they stem from. It could be fear-based. It could be, there are a lot of different reasons. I wish I could, put my finger on just one. But there's many different reasons.
So it's very individualized.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that there is a quote-unquote cure for depression? Is it something that you can get over, or is it rather something that you adapt to and learn to live with or learn to manage, that you can, have a remission, but then it would come back again and you just learn at different stages to adapt and adjust? Or do you find that people can emerge from this cured?
Well, I guess it just really depends on their diagnosis, their genetic makeup.
Okay.
Genetics plays a huge role in
Does it really?
Absolutely, how we
Okay.
experience things. It's always good to sort of go back and look at your family tree, and if you've ever seen any other family member, that's a good indication of what you might be experiencing. And, you may be experiencing something different than your sibling is experiencing, but you just may have sort of develop that genetic coding for depression.
So there is somewhat of a genetic
absolutely,
predisposition for it.
There's always
Okay.
a genetic piece.
That's very interesting. So you utilize, without getting too technical, but you utilize different approaches to treat depression and anxiety. One of them being eye movement desensitization reprocessing.
Yes.
That sounds so complex. Is it as complex as it sounds?
It is, but it's actually pretty fascinating for those people who don't really like to talk.
Okay.
This is a great therapy style for them. It's using your eye movement to sort of re-experience the past, but not in a actual experiencing it, but you sort of begin to make these connections to your past, and there's very little talking that goes on, and it's really just using the brain to heal.
Okay. It sounds fascinating. And then dialectic behavioral therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, without getting to specifics, what does behavioral therapy in general seek to do? Is it modification of behavior or understanding why one behaves the way that they do?
Really both, and it offers, depending on the style of therapy that I do with a client, is also very individualized, but it really goes back to, giving people alternative ways to think, creating an awareness of how they're currently thinking, and providing some other substitutes for just emotional well-being and balance.
Well, it's good that, you're certainly giving your clients tools, and I think it's very refreshing and very comforting to know that there are ways to be helped and to be healed, and the first step is seeking out someone to help you. So, Karen, again, I want to give all of your information so that people can find you at the end of the show, because I think what you're doing is so important. You also work with people using key aspects of yoga, and I want to talk about yoga because, it's kind of, there are yoga studios all over. Mm-hmm. There's always a yoga class around, but I personally find it important, although I admittedly don't get there very much. But I want to talk about the health benefits, but the techniques that you employ are breath coordination, increased awareness of physical sensation, and a deeper examination of an inner process. So explain how you bring these yoga principles into your practice.
Well, one of the first things I teach people is a 3-part breath. So becoming not only just aware of their breathing, but different ways to breathe. We all breathe, but no one really pays attention. So if it's somebody that has a lot of anxiety, a lot of anxious people tend to be chest breathers. They're not paying attention to their breath. So they breathe into their chest. So that, has a direct result of increasing our anxiety. So what I do is really try to get people I bring everything back to their body. So I don't just focus on their thoughts, I also focus on what sensations are happening in their body. Where do they feel it in their body when they're depressed? How do they experience anxiety? Where are they feeling it in their body? Because I think that's very important. So through yoga practice, I mean, I'm not down on the floor with my mat in my, but I do encourage people to get in touch with, to do yoga, because I think one of the things in Western society, what we forget is our mind and our bodies are connected.
Right.
And in Western society, we tend to just want to give someone a pill and say, there you go, you're all fixed. But what yoga can do is improve sleep, improve your breath coordination. So I do a lot of chair yoga for people who've experienced particularly a lot of trauma, so they can be in touch with their body, because a lot of people experience this sort of separation between their mind and body. We want to have them be more
them back
grounded.
together.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Talk about sleep, because you mentioned it a few times. Is that one of the biggest side effects of any type of anxiety, worry, or depression? Is it a lack of sleep, or kind of what happens to us when we are so inundated that we experience this chronic lack of sleep?
Well, one of the things that impacts our sleep is, that's our quiet time. So all of a sudden, many people that I talk to, their minds begin to race at night when they should be sleeping.
Right.
So sleeping is the body's way to heal. And that's what happens when we go into deep REM sleep, is our body, that is our body's natural way to heal all of the stress and strain of the day. So with a lack of that, you are interrupting the body's natural healing process.
And I think, just your inability to function, it's very difficult, and over time, we all have coffee that we go to or ways to keep up, but it does catch up with you.
Absolutely.
But treating perhaps the underlying cause of why you can't shut your mind down off the bat, that's a great case to go and either take a yoga class or speak to a professional or start to kind of peel back the layers of the onion to see, what's going on with the person and how they can move past that. But I want to, as our time is somewhat coming to a close, I want to talk about mindfulness, because it is a buzzword. We hear it so often. We've used it several times on the show this morning, but I'd like you to define for viewers and listeners, define mindfulness from your perspective as a clinical social worker.
Well, to keep it very simple, mindfulness is just being aware of what you're thinking as you're thinking it, being aware of what you're feeling as you're feeling it, and just being able to let that go and not hold on to things. So, I mean, in a very simple sense, that's just, again, being awareness, spending time to be aware of who you're talking to, enjoying moments of just doing simple tasks of the day. So that it's not a complicated process, but it is a good foundation for just most people, whether they want to enter into therapy or not, just to be aware of their breath, be aware of engaging in the moment. If you're going to your son's Little League game, how do you be very present in the moment and really be paying attention to what's happening as it's happening?
It's kind of like just being where you are.
Yeah, and we're a very mindless society right now.
It's very true, and I don't think it's always with bad intent. I mean, if I'm somewhere here, I'm right now. I'm here with you. I'm in the moment, but you think about, where do I have to go after this, and what do I have to do, and then you can't help but jump on board that thought train that's just gonna run wild. So, and like you say, and you explain, most of us don't have 5 minutes to sit down, let alone take a 45-minute yoga class. So you have 6 exercises that take very little effort and can be done anywhere, anytime. I'm going to go through these exercises, but explain how short the period of time can be. Mindful breathing. If you just stop and connect and feel yourself breathe and allow yourself to breathe deeply, how often is this something you can stop and practice? Is it like 10 repetitions of breath? Is it 1 minute of just cognitive aware breathing?
You know, it can literally be like a minute. We're all traveling in our cars or on the train. You know, you can use that time more effectively rather than looking at your phone, taking 2 minutes. Everyone has 2 minutes. I mean, we might believe that we don't, but we do.
But then we can't go check everything on
Right.
Facebook.
So put your phone
really.
down and just breathe. You know, just be aware of your breath going in. Usually what I do is I try to have people pay attention to their breath going in through their nose. It's a natural filtration system. And then just taking a deep breath into your belly and just letting it go.
So letting it out through your mouth, in through your nose and out through your mouth. You know, it's when you do stop and do that, because, you know, every once in a while I'll try to do that, but when you do, and I do it with my daughter when I do it, you do feel this kind of relief. And it really does work. It's something that you can actually feel that benefit immediately after. And it's something so simple. Mindful observation, is that kind of just being aware of what we see as we're seeing it, what we, you know, just, again, being where you are and not 1,000 miles away.
Absolutely. So a great opportunity to do that, to observe, is right now. It's a beautiful time of year. You know, think of all the colors just driving down the road. You know, obviously I don't want you to do it while you're driving, but if you're walking, you know, pay attention to what's going on around you.
That's true.
Just
Cherry blossoms.
Just notice the small things. You know, it helps take you out of your mind and out of getting caught up in your thoughts, and how to create a little space in just a moment. I mean, we're all doing these things anyways. Everyone's breathing. Right. You know, you have to breathe. So it's not something you're adding to your hectic schedule. You're walking down the street, you're going places, you're at the grocery store. Look at how beautiful all the fruits and vegetables are this time of year. You know, it can be something as simple as doing what you're already doing, but just changing your awareness.
Just doing it in a different, more aware way. Mindful awareness, mindful listening, mindful immersion, and mindful appreciation. These are wonderful tips. I'd like you to tell us how listeners and viewers can get in touch with you at your particular practice, because perhaps you have some wheels turning and people are thinking, maybe I need to talk to someone, or maybe I need to enlist some help for myself. Where can we find you?
Absolutely. So I'm located at 132 East Putnam Ave, Suite H in Coscob, Connecticut. You can reach me at Karen, that's Karyn, Vivier, Vivier @gmail.com. Or you can call my phone, 203-487-5887. Or you can go on Psychology Today. Psychology Today is a wonderful resource. There are many different therapists in the area. You know, find who you can connect with and go from there. But it's a wonderful tool.
At some point along the way on our journey, I think all of us need to connect with someone of your profession. And the benefits are really too many to enumerate. So, and I think you have a wonderful approach, because you're giving tangible tools to target everyday problems. Everything that you've said today is something that every one of us has faced. So Karyn Vivier, 203-487-5887, right here in Coscob, or KarynVivier@gmail.com. Thank you, Karyn, for your time today.
Thank you, Jen.
I think you shared a lot of wisdom, and all of us make it a point to be mindful today. Stop and smell the roses, literally, although the allergies are, so maybe we want to avoid that high pollen count today. Thank you, Karyn.
Thank you.
And this is Jen Graziano thanking you for taking the time to listen as we took the time to talk. Have a